Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker. We're joined by a very special guest today. You may remember him from the last time NC State won a men's basketball championship in 1983. He was a freshman at the time. Mr. Ernie Myers has joined us today on the Wolfpacker Podcast. And of course, I'm joined by co-host Matt Carter as well. Before we get too far along in this episode, this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Hunter Clausen a call today at 480-513-3992 or email Hunter directly at hclausen@jfqlending.com. That's HCLAUSSEN@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And while you're at it, head over to thewolfpacker.com and use promo code PACK60. That's promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on your premium Wolfpack athletics news, content, and analysis. We're now about 1 month away from men's basketball season, which is why we have our special guest on today, Ernie Myers, to talk a little bit of hoops. I'm sure after the 48-21 loss in Chapel Hill, NC State fans are surely looking forward to talking some hoops today. So we'll take a little break from our football coverage on this week's episode, and we'll get back to it this weekend with a bye week coverage. But Ernie, thank you for joining us. What you been up to this summer? I know, it's everyone's kind of doing the same, just staying away from other people. So just tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, basically that's basically it. Trying to just stay away from people, and trying to survive this virus. I just been hanging out with the family and just trying to just working a little bit here and there, trying to stay away from people. Basically, it's just been really weird. This past summer, it was like I was at the women's ACC tournament and the men's ACC tournament. I watched the women win the ACC tournament last year, and then I was at the ACC tournament when the men's game was canceled. So I was in the arena ready to watch a game or whatever, and they were like, everything's canceled, don't come back. So it was really weird to see the season end like that, and they had a great first game in the tournament, and I would have loved to see what they would have done against Duke.
Let me ask you this, if I may. Let me ask you this, Ernie. How would Jim Valvano have done with the idea of a bubble and isolating players and all of that? And it seems like Jimmy V might have been hard for him to contain himself to one place. He'd have been pulling his hair out. I mean, he's a guy that liked, to be everywhere all the time. He loved people, being around people. He loved an audience. This would have been, I don't know how he would have handled this. It would have been tough. Yeah. It would have been really tough. Yeah. And this is tough on, I was just watching Krzyzewski on TV, and he was talking about, they get tested every day, and, and how they're progressing and all that kind of stuff at Duke with the testing and all that. And it's just kind of unbelievable what's going on. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's still so much uncertainty. I mean, as we get closer here, it, seems like, we're now halfway through the football season. A lot, 3 months ago, we didn't even necessarily know if that was going to be the case. So we're now halfway through the football season. Basketball's looking good, but we still got some unknowns with the schedule going on. There's been some of these early season non-conference tournaments, if you will, that have been canceled. NC State seems to be making the right moves, hosting their own multi-team event in Raleigh, which will start, I think, November 25th will be the official start of college basketball. So it's funny you mentioned the last time we kind of saw, live sports as we know it in Greensboro. You were at the women's basketball tournament, as was I. Matt was at the men's basketball tournament. And I think that gives us a good starting point for, our podcast here. How how do you think a team responds to something like that when they kind of had unfinished business? You alluded to wanting to see them play Duke. NC State was sitting, and we're talking about the men here. The women were not on the bubble by any means.
Right.
They were going to be a high seed.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The men were right on the bubble, and they had a prime opportunity to take on the Duke Blue Devils, who would have been a top 1 or 2 seed. They beat them by 22 points earlier in the season in Raleigh. But, they're going to go into this year with a little bit of unfinished business. How do you think that's going to be a motivator for these guys heading into this new year?
Well, we had Markell Johnson. We had a totally different team. This team coming in, I know the coaches are, eager to get back, but, they have a lot of unknowns coming in this year with, they have a lot of 4-star players coming in, young players. I know they're eager to play. They had a, good recruiting season. Last season, and I saw a coach in an interview saying he finally has a team that he likes. You can take that a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? As far as how you put that out there. But the guys who are on the team, Devin Daniels and DJ Funderburk and Braxton, Beverly, and those guys who have were primetime players would I know they can't wait to get back on the court. You know what I mean? They can't wait to show the fans that hey they would have made the tournament or and that type of thing. But it's just hard. It's even hard to analyze because this is something that's never happened before. In that regard, it was just taken away. This pandemic kind of, took away, all those dreams and possibilities. So it's kind of, it's hard to even speculate on, how guys are feeling or, it's not like they want to, I know they really wanted to play Duke again, but the Duke team they'll play this year is a totally different Duke team,
Right. Well, it's a little bit different over there when they're bringing in about 5, 6, 7 5-star freshmen a year. I mean, it's a completely new roster for them every year. For NC State, there's at least some sustained, experience there. You mentioned Markell Johnson and C.J. Bryce as the senior guards gone. I'll let Matt ask this next question because I know that's one of the most exciting questions that he has in mind for early season basketball. But you got a little bit of combination of experience plus youth in this backcourt. Matt, I know you're in the Braxton Beverly camp. It seems that Cam Hayes, the 4-star freshman coming in 2020, could also contend for that starting point guard job. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? And I want to hear Ernie's thoughts too.
Mm-hmm. I just know that Kevin Keith always seems comfortable with Braxton Beverly. That assumed that Braxton has a healthy back and everything else. And I know they've talked about the back might be a lingering issue for him. But if he's healthy and ready to go, I think Kevin Keith is comfortable with that veteran on the court. And I could see him matching him up with Thomas Allen and having a veteran backcourt. But I'm curious what Ernie thinks too, because I think that's the $1 million question, right, for this team. Is how do they replace C.J. Bryce, obviously, but more so, how do you replace Markell Johnson, who's been the guy at point guard for what? 3 years?
That's the big question right there. And then you have Shaquille Moore. He's a very athletic. He's a 4-star player as well coming in. He'll be he's going to be a freshman to contend for that starting spot. Hayes is a talented, 4-star guy, out of Greensboro. I think Braxton Beverly is definitely going to have one of those spots in the backcourt, definitely.
Yeah.
Assuming that, he's healthy or what have you, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to replace a guy like Markell in a league like the ACC. The point guard is like the head of the team, and to have no real point guard. Braxton Beverly is not a point guard. Right. He's a shooting guard.
In a point guard's body.
In a point guard's body. I mean, he can handle the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's been very consistent in that regard. But you rather have him catching and shooting than trying to, create and run a team.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see. And it's kind of weird because you can't go to practice. You can't, you can't watch and see what's going on, and how they're working out, because everything is, this pandemic has shut everything down. You can't even go and watch a practice or talk to the coaches or what have you. So it's, I've heard they've been having some great workouts, that type of thing. I heard they've been having some great workouts and they've been having some great battles. But it's going to be tough, seeing who's going to emerge as the starting point guard, and the guy who starts the season might not be the guy, that ends up being it's going to be a lot of wait and see who plays, how everybody meshes as the team goes on. It's going to be a lot of guys in and out. You know how Coach Keats runs his teams. It could be a myriad of guys playing point before he decides on who's the number one guy.
Let me ask you this way. Pretty well, I know through covering him, how comfortable do you think he would be with a freshman point guard? Because he loves his point guards. I mean, he rides them hard. I mean, how comfortable would he be with a freshman?
Yeah, you're going to have a thick skin. To play point guard for Coach Keats. I mean, he's really demanding of his point guard. I mean, him and Markell used to have a little battles, as far as the way he wanted his team ran or things he wanted him to do at certain periods of time in the game. And, he had some frustrations, with him at times. So these freshmen are coming in, or, he's hard on his point guards. So whoever gets that spot is going to have a thick skin. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm with you, Ernie. I mean, I think, Braxton, Beverly, you certainly have the experience there, but his best use on the court is as a spot up shooter in that 2 position. And I think Keats certainly wants to utilize that as well. So in an ideal world, Cam Hayes comes in ready to go. But obviously it's going to take some time as a true freshman, particularly with a limited non-conference schedule this year. I mean, he's pretty much going to jump right into the fire of the ACC play, and we'll see how prepared he is to do that. A lot of the fans are very excited about this year based on the returning talent and based on the talent coming in with the recruiting class. I think some may be minimizing the impact of losing 2 senior guards. I mean, that was very important. You got, C.J. Bryce and Markell Johnson, 2 of your leading scorers right there last year. And now this team's going to be, in terms of scoring production, it's going to be set up a little bit differently. Maybe a DJ Funderburk becomes that guy down low as your leading scorer. We also haven't mentioned senior Devin Daniels as a guard. Who was really coming into his own down the stretch last year, one of the better on-ball defenders on that team last year, should probably do the same this year. I mean, where do you see the points and the production that Markell Johnson and C.J. Bryce provided? Where do you see that dispersing with this new young and experienced roster?
Well, Devin Daniels, I think he's going to be key. I mean, he really stepped up at the end of the season. He was driving, starting to shoot the ball a lot better from the outside. I mean, he played fearless basketball at the end of the season. And I think, he was responsible for them, progressing and winning that first game in the ACC tournament. He was one of the main reasons. The way he goes to the basket, sometimes with reckless abandon. I mean, he has no fear, and his defense, really picked up. He was very aggressive on defense. I think he's going to be definitely one of the leaders. And also DJ Funderburk, he was averaging 12, almost, he's one of the leading scorers on the team last year as well. He was averaging about 12 points a game. Just facing up to the basket, taking, off the, not too much off the post up, but just getting the ball, facing up, shooting jump shots, getting the ball in right position, just going hard to the basket with force, dunking the ball, and playing really good defense. I mean, his defense improved. I think that's why Coach and his rebounding improved. That's why Coach, he got the starting position as the season progressed last year. So I really think that, and I really believe, Braxton Beverly is going to, pick up some of that scoring punch as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's had some great games. He's going to be a senior this year coming up. He's been through all the wars. I mean, and he has the scars to prove it. With his back injuries and stuff like that. He plays hard. So, but I really think Devin Daniels is going to step up and be a big time offensive player for the Wolfpack this year.
And you have to think more of those threes will be going in without a broken back this year. I mean, as long as he can,
right.
I mean, he couldn't even sit down on the bench through ACC play. So, I mean, it was, he was really battling through it, and it was kind of a matter of necessity based on the depth of this team, which is one of the strengths of this team. Coach Keats mentioned that it might be his most versatile roster. It also might be one of his deepest rosters since he's been in Raleigh. I mean, how do you think that, are we going to see the full Kevin Keats system this year with this personnel?
Well, he says that, he says this, he loves this team. This is, he likes, this is the best team he likes since he's been here. So I think he has the young talent. These guys want to, play hard for him. He has this whole roster is his, with his recruiting class. There's no leftover players, from the previous coach, Mark Godfrey, Markell Johnson's gone. So every player on the team is a player he recruited and that type of thing. So I think he likes the roster, and he's going to be able to coach these guys up and get them to do the things that he wants them to do on the basketball court.
Speaking of returning player, kind of a guy who may not get the headline because he doesn't score a lot of points, but he's also very popular because he blocks a lot of shots. That's Manny Bates.
Absolutely.
You played next to a pretty good shot blocker your freshman year with Thurl Bailey over there. I mean, What kind of difference did Manny Bates bring to the team with his shot blocking ability, and how can he really change the game with what he does?
Well, he had, Coach Keats always talked about he needed a rim protector, and that's exactly what Manny Bates is, a big-time rim protector. I saw some pictures of him, and, it seemed like he bulked up a little bit. Yeah. He's kind of looking good. Maybe he can get some, hopefully they worked on his low post moves back to the basket or what have you. But as a defensive player, man, he's and a rebounder, he should make a big difference this year. He should step up this year. And I also think Jericho Helms should be able to pick up some of the scoring as well. He was, he had a couple of injuries last year. Sometimes, you see him, he can shoot the three sometimes, I think he'll be a little bit more consistent this year, coming into the game or what have you. So, and I'm interested to see Sebron. He's a 6'7" guard, was a big time scorer in high school. And he's going to be eligible to play this year. He's real athletic. I'm looking forward to see how he comes in the mix as well. But Manny Bates, he's definitely a game changer. And like you said, I played with a guy named Thurl Bailey, was one of the top shot blockers in the history of the Wolfpack. And Manny Bates is the way he can get up and down the court, and he wants to block shots. I mean, he wants to. He gets amped up off blocking shots. He loves it. But if we can get him to stay out of foul trouble and grab some more rebounds, I know Coach Keats would love that.
Let me ask you, because last year Keats kind of went big lineup, which I never thought I would see from Kevin Keats with Funderburk and Bates. He can go a lot of ways with this lineup. He could go with a defensive lineup, a shooting lineup, an athletic lineup. I mean, with guys like Sebron and Helms and Daniels, you got a lot of versatility.
And they got a new guy, Ebenezer, the 6'11" kid, freshman out of Georgia. They really like him from what I've heard. He's a little more offensive minded. He grabs rebounds. Yeah, they're gonna have they can have a big lineup again.
Yeah.
You know,
did you like that last year? Did you like it when they went to the big lineup? Did you think it kind of fit well?
Yeah, I thought it fit well. I mean, in the ACC, you're going to have to play with. You can't play 4 guards and a big guy in the ACC and win consistently.
Yeah,
that's just you just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is not that conference. I mean, you got to have some guys, you know, some size and you know, guys that can play multiple positions. You know, big guys that can shoot the ball, stretch. You know, the game's changed, but you know, I love the big lineup, and I think once he implemented that big lineup, you know, they started winning some games. You know, I thought they played a lot better.
And adding DeWan.
Go ahead, Justin.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, adding a DeWanna to the equation really, in terms of depth, especially down low, it's going to be crucial in ACC play, because if you looked at the games that NC State really struggled last year, it was when either Manny Bates or DJ Funderburk got into foul trouble, and then they didn't really have a next guy to go to down low, you know, a reliable option. So, you know, hopefully that will give Keats another option, and hopefully in the offseason, you know, Bates has matured a little bit, learned to not foul as much. So those two things combined hopefully should bode well for the Wolfpack. Matt, what did you have?
Well, I forgot what I was going to ask. So
you're so excited about this team.
No. I remember now. If you had a concern about this team, what would be your concern?
Just so many. You know, it's an interesting mix because you do have veterans.
Yep.
You know that they like Helms and you know Manny Bates, and you got you know Funderburk and you know those guys coming back. But the point guard is just, you know, the point guard is the motor. Yeah. You know, he's going to get the guys the ball, and it all depends on, you know, how they play. You know, who's going to bring the ball up, who's going to, you know, get guys in a position to score. You know, Markell, he got into the, you know, the teeth of the defense. He was able to penetrate and create plays for guys that, you know, other guys couldn't do on the team. You know, he'd get into the lane and make passes and lobs and, you know, and that type of thing. Coach Keats is going to need that from one of these point guards, one of these freshmen, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be tough for him.
Yeah. It does seem weird. You have like 4 or 5 guys that have played a lot. You got 5 or 6 guys that have never played. There's no in between. There's none of those. That freshman that got a little bit of playing time, kind of got his feet wet, and then going to graduate to a bigger role. It's either you played a lot or you haven't played at all.
Right, exactly. And so that's going to be interesting. And, you know, Coach, he likes to go 10 deep. You know, I mean, we definitely going to see a lot of guys play. They're going to get an opportunity. But it's just going to be interesting. That point guard position worries me. You know, running a team, and you got guys that are seniors that have been there, you know, and played, and you know, and you know, they used to getting the ball a certain type of way, and they used to, you know, and so they're going to be watching the point guard like, you know, who's going to be that guy, you know, to get me the ball, you know, in the right place at the right time.
And I think it's fair to say, you know, Wolfpack fans might have gotten a little spoiled with Markell Johnson back there. You know, because there was the inconsistency element. It was which Markell Johnson's going to show up tonight. I think NC State fans looked at Markell Johnson differently than, you know, the opponent's fan bases, because they were always worried about him. I mean, we're talking about a guy that led the ACC in assists per game twice in his career. He's one of the all-time leaders at NC State now in assists. So it's a real, you know, it's going to be a real transition. Ernie, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on kind of the expectations, the overall expectations of this team, because, you know, I think the ACC is also going to take a step up this year. You know, you had Carolina on an off year last year. They're going to bounce back with, you know, incoming talent. You had Virginia coming off their national championship season, but they were kind of a fringe top 25 team, came into their own at the end of the year. What should be the expectations for this team? Is this team going to return to the NCAA tournament? And that's not assuming that all the teams are going to make it, like the ACC coaches suggested earlier this summer.
Well, it all depends on the schedule. once you see the schedule, I got to see the schedule and see how these, they set the games up, and it's going to be majority ACC play. I mean, it's just a lot of unknowns to be able to make a serious analysis on that. I mean, I saw they had them picked 10th in the ACC. I saw something in regards to them being picked 10th in the ACC. I think this is a team that'll probably get better as the year goes on, once the young players get comfortable playing in the ACC. And like you said, Duke's going to have a good team. Carolina's going to be better. Virginia Tech is going to be better. You always count in Syracuse. I mean, it's just so many, different teams. Even Pittsburgh. I mean,
apparently people like Miami this year too. Like I'm seeing them.
Miami, absolutely. Florida State's going to be tough. I mean, it's just the way my expectation is. It's a wait and see. It's definitely a wait and see. And then if you factor in COVID, in football, it's a different animal. In basketball, guys are in the shirt and the t-shirt, shorts and the t-shirt, you know what I mean? And
right.
You're at the foul line, you're breathing hard on guys. It's hard, it's more, contact on a basketball court, in a basketball game than anything. So I don't know how COVID's going to factor in to, this season, if guys come down with COVID, on a basketball team. I mean, we're going to have to, contact trace the whole, everybody's going to have to quarantine. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
I kind of wondered that. One positive test in basketball may take out the whole team.
Yeah.
There's no way to avoid contact tracing in basketball. A practice alone will classify as contact tracing, I think.
Yeah, and then, hey, if a guy's at the free throw line, he coughs a couple of times. How's that going to factor in to the game? You know what I mean? It's like guys are going to be looking at him like, oh, man, I got to stay away from that dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just going to be weird. That's a possibility. I know I would be thinking about it if I see a guy cough a couple of times and I'm playing against him. I'm like, hold up, man. Hey, coach, sub.
Coughing might be an effective box out method this year.
Yeah, right. Guy grab a rebound and cough a couple of times. That'll clear out the lane.
That will. Let me. I know Justin's a big fan of the women's basketball team. You obviously cover them a lot, working with ACC Network, ESPN, and NC State, and all that. Before we look ahead, in your honest heart of hearts, where could that team have gone last season had they had a chance to play the NCAA tournament?
I think they would have went to the Final Four. I think that team was gelling. They had a little, at the end of the season, they had a little problem or what have you with, what they wanted to do and how they were playing. And once they got to the tournament, they kind of cleared all those problems up and they were able to, win the championship, and they had a lot of confidence. The young players, Jada Boyd and Jackie Brown-Turner were coming into their own, along with, Cunane and Ace and those, she was the MVP. She was struggling with her shot. She was looking confident. I think they would have went to the Final Four. Yeah. I think they would have made it to the Final Four last year.
Yeah. Justin, what did you think?
I mean, I agree. I was there in Greensboro and saw the magic happen, first ACC Tournament Championship in 29 years. I mean, how more confidence than you could ever want going into the tournament like that. Exactly. And, you mentioned Ace Koenig. I think that's going to be a player that they miss this year because she really proved to be the go-to shooter down the stretch. I mean, you kind of alluded to it in that championship game where she started off cold in the first half, but then she knocked down 3 of 3 in the fourth quarter, including the big one that tied up the game with about 2 minutes to go. And it was all Wolfpack in those final minutes there in Greensboro. But, I talked to Wes Moore a couple weeks ago, and he says it's going to be more of a by committee approach to their perimeter shooting. NC State was one of the better perimeter shooting teams in the country in women's basketball. But for Elissa Cunane, I mean, this seems to be her year to maybe make the case as ACC Player of the Year. I know she was in contention early on in conference play, and then that girl from Louisville ended up kind of, stealing the show a little bit. But, what are your expectations for Cunane and just, I mean, I see another potential Final Four team if I look at this roster.
I do too, and they got a good transfer in Perez from Cal State. She was Player of the Year there. I mean, she averaged 19 points a game. She's a big-time scorer, all-around player. And you got, Jada Boyd, who came off the bench. I think, she's a scorer. She's very athletic. And Brown Turner is she has a definitely three-point threat, but Cunane, I think, is going to really shine this year. She just has to get the ball. I mean, she can shoot the three. She can post up. She knows how to pass the ball out. I mean, she's definitely one of the top players in the country coming in this year. And coach is going to, get her the ball. Definitely. The team is going to go how she goes. And I think last year, they found a way to play her a little bit. They were bodying up, being real physical with her down the end of the season in ACC play. But I think she's gotten stronger. She's going to get stronger this year. And I think she's going to definitely a definite ACC Player of the Year candidate. She was one last year. I think she should be ACC Player of the Year this year.
I mean, you hit it right on the head there. That seemed to be the recipe for opponents in terms of stopping her last year. The first time you saw it last year was the road trip to Carolina, which was NC State's first loss of the season. And that center, Bailey,
Bailey was just pushing her out. She was being physical with her. She got her out of her comfort zone. Every time she got the ball, it was, far away from the basket, and she would push her out and keep her out. And after that game, that was the recipe. After the league saw how she was being played, but she had some great games after that, but they were much harder. She had to work harder to get to get her points and get to the basket and the score. But that was the key right there. That Carolina game at Carolina, was key in how they played her. And that's how, teams played her, as the season progressed last year.
Well, they got their revenge when the Heels had to come to Reynolds Coliseum. Right. That was actually the first time you and I met, Ernie. I was sitting right next to you under the baseline there at Reynolds. It was another physical game, but this time, the referees were a little bit more favorable to the Wolfpack as opposed to the Tar Heels and Carmichael.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Coach Banghart was not very pleased with the referees after that game, Carolina's coach. But we're talking about the Wolfpack here. And speaking of physical play, when I talked to Coach Moore a couple weeks ago, he mentioned the lineup personnel that he's thinking. He wants to get Jada Boyd involved in the starting lineup. And I think, she really kind of came into her own at the end of last year, was, in my mind, just as impressive as Jakia Brown-Turner down the stretch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But he's thinking, Jakia Brown-Turner on the wing, keep Kayla Jones involved in the lineup. You insert Jada Boyd and Cunane. That's a big lineup. That's a physical lineup. And then the remaining question is, who's going to play point guard? Kind of similar to the men.
Yeah. They got a point guard coming in from Cal who averaged 19 points a game.
Right.
She's a grad transfer, but she's gonna play a lot. And then you have
Kai Crutchfield,
who is not a point guard. She's more of a shooting guard, and she's very athletic. She's kind of streaky, but I think he's just kind of reloaded. He got some good freshmen in. He's got some top talent, coming in at at the power forward as well. Recruit from Georgia. I'm forgetting her name off the top of my head.
Dontavia Wagner?
Yes, Wagner. Yep. She's going to come and get some playing time as well. I think he's just kind of reloaded, and but the point guard is suspect. I mean, you know, they're bringing in a player that's a grad transfer who was a player of the year on the West Coast in their conference, and averaged 18, 19 points a game. It was so they're going to be battling. I know, you know, they had the girl from Fayetteville, Moore, who played a little last year. You know, at the point, she didn't get a whole lot of time, but he kind of reloaded. I mean, I'm not. You worried about the point guard position, but they got so many. KJ, like you say, Kayla Jones. She's like the glue of the team.
Right.
You know, they got a lot of experience. You know, that can bring that on. That can still win games for them, even if the point guard's not playing that great. You know what I mean? They got some firepower. You know, Coach Moore's team.
Well, my last question for me before we wrap it up was, how do you handle being the 100 now? I mean, they got the ACC championship. Notre Dame's going to want it back. You know, Carolina's building up. You know, Louisville's going to want to get it back. Florida State's always strong. Duke, I'm sure Duke is excited with their new coaching hire.
New coach.
Yeah. So how I mean, you went through that. You won a national championship. I'm sure everybody was coming after y'all the next season. How do you handle being the 100?
Well, I thought they were kind of 100 last year.
Fair point.
Yeah, because they won 20 some odd games in a row. I mean, you know, they, aside from some injuries they had, one of those, they didn't have the injuries they had in 2 years ago. They probably went to the foreigner tournament as well.
Yeah.
You know, with all the ACL tears that he had on that team. But yeah, it's tough being the team that you know, everybody's coming after you. You know, after you win a tournament, or you know, everybody's, you know, these high expectations, and you know, how's it going to act when you go on the road and the team you played, you know, you ranked 8th in the country and they storm the court on you. You know what I mean? It's you know you've made it. You know you're one of those teams now. So, but they have a lot of experience, and you know, all those other teams in the tournament, Miami, and you know, the ACC is just stacked in women's basketball. Syracuse, you know, all these teams. I think Virginia Tech stepped up last year. You know, they're going to be better. You know, so I think they have the experience to handle all that now. I think they're confident. They're going to definitely hold home court in the ACC at Reynolds Coliseum. You know, Coach Moore is going to expect a lot out of them. I know he's working them hard right now. I saw him at the football game when we played against Duke. I spoke to him a little bit at that game, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, Ernie, we getting them. You know, he's going to have them ready." Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a little bit different this year, you know, with potential limited crowds. I'm sure you can relate to this, Ernie, as a guy that played in Reynolds Coliseum, but it's not going to be the same without the packed house. As long as you can get a few people in there, it can still be loud because that place just contains the noise. But that's one thing that, unfortunately, I think we'll miss, at least for the start of the season. But
basketball will be hard to play without fanning. The fans can change the game, you know, in basketball. I mean, just the crowd, the noise, the momentum of the game, you know, the home court advantage. It's just, it's going to be interesting to see how the players respond when they don't have that sixth man, you know, that the crowd. You know, right. I'm interested to see how that works out, you know, because that was one of the things when I played, just when you run out and, you know, they might not even have the band playing this year. You know what I mean? The band,
right.
You know, you won't see the cheerleaders flipping, and, you know, you might have some cardboard copies out there that, you know, they put in the stands. Right. I know we're not going to have any virtual fans like the NBA did. but it's gonna be interesting to see how the teams react.
I know I said I already going to ask my last question, but I got one more. Let me set up a scenario for you. Let's say the governor says you can only have X amount of fans at a game. What would you think of NC State saying, well, since we can't have a large crowd, why don't we play our men's basketball games at Reynolds Coliseum this year?
Wow, that would be interesting. That would be, that could be a game changer right there. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out either. I don't know.
I'm sure there's some kind of lease contractual agreement. You have to play some amount of games at PNC Arena. But somebody asked me that a couple of weeks ago, and it got me thinking: could they play games at Reynolds if they're not allowed to have a big crowd?
Coach Keats would want to play all his games at Reynolds if he could. He loves the environment there. He's talked about it, but that would be interesting to have a whole season back in Reynolds. That would be crazy. And what would be crazy, the fans would go nuts because they can't be there.
Oh,
You know what I mean? That'd be a hard ticket to get.
You could increase the cost of the ticket by playing it at Reynolds too, because fans will want to be there. They might pay a little bit more dollars for being at Reynolds.
Absolutely. It'd be like old times.
Yeah.
I don't know how they'll handle the parking if they let a crowd in there. There's a lot of games, men's and women's basketball.
Yeah.
Back at Reynolds, that'd be crazy.
a Carolina State ticket with a limited capacity in Reynolds Coliseum for the first time in 3 decades. That's more than I make in a year probably for one of those tickets. So.
Oh man, can you imagine that?
Ugh.
That would be unbelievable. I mean, I know they play those, legacy games or heritage games or whatever, and I love going to see the Wolfpack play in those games at Reynolds. But to play the whole season there, that'd be crazy.
And we know we'll hear Coach Keats loud and clear. We already hear him on the telecast with fans, but without fans, I mean, we'll be able to hear everything he's saying.
Yeah, but, that might not be a good thing, Coach. Yeah, you've heard him on the sidelines. It might not be a good thing to hear him that loud on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Well, Ernie, thank you so much for joining us. It was a fun conversation. I was already excited for hoop season, but now I'm even more excited.
I appreciate the invite, and I love talking about the Wolfpack sports and basketball, men's and women's basketball, and I appreciate the invite.
And for the listeners at home, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also give us a follow on social media. You can follow us at The Wolfpacker on Twitter or like us on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on thewolfpacker.com. And while you're on thewolfpacker.com, please remember to use that promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium news, content, and analysis on everything NC State athletics. For Ernie Myers, Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.